Hello everyone, I'm back and we're going to have a little modeling tutorial today. This is probably going to be a multi-part, at least a two-part I would think. We're going to model Bender from Futurama. So this grey chap here that I've not put any materials on, no lighting, no render settings. We're just going to focus on the modeling today. And we're going to model this up. Nice and simple. I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to show you how to model this. If I get any copyright infringements, I'll have to take it down, but we'll see. I just figured it's a good character to teach you a few little things about Cheetah3D that you might not know. So I think let's get going. What I should say is, if you're going to model anything that actually already exists, you should always get reference. You should get some kind of reference images so you can kind of compare what you're doing. There's no point guessing. You should always try to work to something that's real and out there. So I've got this image of Bender here. It's not the best one, but it'll do for what I want, and that's what I'm going to use for now. Okay, so I'm going to hide this file. I'm going to make a new Cheetah file and get rid of that other one for now. Let's get cracking. So I'm going to start with a sphere. I generally start with the top of his head, which more or less resembles a sphere. I'm not going for absolute perfection on this. I'm just going to try and get it done relatively quickly so you guys can kind of keep up and have a go and press on yourselves. So I've dropped a ball in the scene and just checking what I need, how much detail I need, and that I'm happy with that. So I'm going to double click that and make it editable. Go into front view, which I have assigned to keyboard free. If you don't have it assigned to keyboard free, you can change your views up here. And I'm going to call an area select, which is control click here, or I have it keyboard A. I'm going to select all those polygons there. I'm going to hit backspace, get rid of them. Now I'm going to come back into the camera or perspective mode, which I have keyboard 2 perspective mode, and I'm going to come into edge mode up here. And press L for loop select, or if you haven't got that, you can do control click for your selection menu here. Grab these things. Do try and set up your hotkeys there. Watch my hotkeys video if you need a few tips on what to do there. I'm going to call, so now I've got that loop selected there. I'm going to call a cover command and I'm going to press T for transform and move that down. Getting the basic shape of the head of Bender there. Let's have a look. So yes, actually got quite a tall head. So if you look at the dome is probably only a third to a quarter of his head. So I think we can come a bit further with that. So to about there, and I'm going to press C again, and then T again. So what I've done there is I've called a cover command and a transform. I'm going to pull that down. This is going to be kind of, this area here is kind of shoulder area. So I'm going to click on the scale option here and pull from the center, from the grey sphere, outwards, and let's just have a look how wide that is. Sorry about jumping in and out here. So it's kind of half the width of the head again. So pulling out to about there, probably a little bit higher up than that, something like that. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit there. And then I'm going to call another cover and T for transform again. I'm going to pull that body right down. So now, having a look at the height, his body's roughly the height of his head. It might be a little bit longer. And that head is looking a little bit long at the moment, but I'm going to leave it as it is for now. We can correct that later if we have to. Let's have a look. I'm just jumping camera views there just to make sure I'm happy with things. I think that will do. I'm going to click on the scale tool there. Just pull in a little bit. He's got a little bit of angle. Actually, it's quite a steep angle on his body. So I'm just coming into front view, which I have keyboard 3. Looking at that, looks a bit like a cocktail shaker. And I think maybe just a touch further down there. I think that will do for his body. Okay, so I've clicked off that. I'm now going to come into my perspective view. I'm just going to look at the bottom of this, and I'm going to call fill hole. And then you just need to click on one of the points at the bottom, and that will fill the base there. And what I tend to do now is come into polygon mode, select that bottom polygon, and I call it inner extrude, which I've set to I, and just pull in, click and pull just very slightly. Okay, so that's just capped it off. So that's the basic shape of his body. Yeah, we'll leave that there now. I'll put the bevels and things in a little while. So I guess the next thing to make is either his little visor or the hole for the mouth. Let's do the hole for the mouth. So I've come into front view again. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to put a couple of cuts in to form the mouth. So let's just have a look how close. So it's quite close to the bottom of the mouth. It's probably just under a quarter of the overall height, maybe a little bit less, a fifth of the overall height of his head. So I'm going to put a cut, ring cut, which I have set to X, but it's there if you want it. Control click to get it. One about there, and another one about something like that. Okay, what that has done is it's given us a basis of polygons that I can use to select for his mouth. So I'm just dragging through using the selection tool. Going to come back into my camera view there, and I'm going to call it inner extrude again, which I have set to I. Let's have a look. There it is. If you don't have your shortcut set up yet, I'm just going to pull that in just a little bit, like so. So I clicked and pulled to activate that. Then I'm going to call a cover command, which I've set to C. Again, control click for that. I'll stop saying control click for everything in a minute. I think you're getting the picture. So I've called cover, and then I'm going to press T for transform. I'm just going to pull that mouth back in like that. Okay, that will do for now. Let's make the visor. So what I tend to do with 3D is anything that looks like it wasn't formed from the same object in real life, or in Bender's case he's not real, so you just kind of have to guess and make it from a separate object. So let's start with a tube. So throw that tube into the scene. First thing I'm going to do is rotate it so I can see what I'm working with. Make sure it's at 90 degrees up here, and then just bring that forward a touch so we can see what we're working with. I'm going to come into front view now, which is 3 for me. Bring that down to roughly where I want it to be, and let's try and size this now using the inner radius and outer radius. So bringing the outer radius right down. If you look at the actual visor, it looks quite thin. The thing with 2D characters is they were never really intended to ever be 3D, so you have to make a judgment call on a few things yourself. So it's never going to be 100% accurate because you're making something 3D that's obviously a 2D object, but let's have a go. Again, I'm just looking at my reference. His eyes are quite big inside the visor. Not a lot of room for movement. Yeah, that looks about right to me. There's a decent bit of gap there between the mouth and the visor, maybe just a little bit less. I'm going to bring that down. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to come into polygon mode, and I'm just going to make my tube editable, and then I'm going to use area select. I'm going to drag over half of this tube, and I'm going to call a cover command again, which I've pressed C, and then I'm going to press T for transform, and just pull that visor out until it looks about right. Now we go back into object mode and just move that into position. So let's have a look now. Yeah, it's quite deep is this tube, but I don't mind that as long as it's not coming out the back, which it actually is doing. So if it's coming out the back, what we can do is I'm just going to zoom in. I'm in polygon mode. I'm going to press R for ring select. I'm going to select that ring of polygons there, T for transform, and just push those back a little bit. Back into object mode. And that'll do. So I'm intersecting the head by quite a lot. It's actually quite round. I've made that visor pretty big. Probably a bit too big. We might have to do that again in a minute, but we'll see. We'll drop the eyes in and see how that works out. Maybe it will be okay. You guys can obviously spend a little bit more time tweaking yours. Just while I'm in here, I'm just going to rename these objects in the object browser just so I know what I'm dealing with. So I've got a body now and a visor, and let's drop in a ball for the eye, I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees forwards. I don't know why, I just do this always when I'm working with eyes, because I like this ring of polygons to use for the actual pupil, although Bender's pupils are actually square, so we probably have to use a texture map for that. Okay, so coming into side view, let's move this down. I'm going to scale it down a little bit as well now. It's got to fit inside that visor, remember? So just adjusting that accordingly. Let's have a look. Okay. Like a Cyclops bender we've got going on there. I'm going to come into front view. So what we can see there is that I haven't really allowed myself much room for messing about with that visor. So I'm probably going to tweak the visor a little bit and just get the eyes right at this stage. So I think his eyes are quite big. Yeah, I'm going to say something like that. I'm just going to call that eye while I'm here, so I double click in the object browser. Then I'm going to add this symmetry creator. And I always get this wrong. You have to put the symmetry, you have to put the eye in the symmetry creator. There we go. And it's push those eyes together quite nicely, actually. Maybe we could just move out a little bit. There we go. So they're just touching, and that kind of looks about right. The visor I don't think is perfect yet. Let me just see if I can do anything with this while we're still here. So coming in front view in polygon mode, I'm gonna apply. I'm gonna A area select over there and press T for transform and just pull that just a little bit wider. And what I'm trying to do now is kind of match the radius of the eye. I'm going to pull this side out as well. Okay, cool. So now it fits a little bit better. It's too big though, but what we should be able to do is come into object mode, click on the scale tool and just scale down, and it should house those eyes quite nicely. I'm just going to play around with the different camera views to get this right. So in front view, and I'm going to scale that eye down a little bit as well, because I liked it when there was a little bit of breathing room there. Move it in slightly. There we go. That's starting to look a little bit more like what Bender should look like now. I'm going to just turn the grid off a minute. I'm just coming up here. It's kind of annoying me, the grid. Okay, at some point we'll have to put a subdivision on this body. What will happen is it will smooth all these edges out. So if I throw a subdivision on that body now, you see that it ends up looking more like a pin, a bowling pin. So what we need to do is just click in on the body object, coming into, in fact, let me just delete the subdivision a second. What we need to do is just bevel a few edges on his body. So I'm going to press L for loop select. I'm going to select that loop there and that loop there. And possibly, although I'm not sure this one will work, that loop there. And I'm now going to call the bevel tool. Control click, and I can never see it when I want it. There it is. Mine is set to linear with a level of 2, quantize is off, and I'm going to click and just pull a tiny little bit. Okay, what that will do is what I call protecting edges. So now when we add a subdivision on, okay, we get a much smoother kind of edge to his body. It doesn't look like a bowling pin anymore. Let me just delete that. So we've got a few issues in the mouth as well. Excuse me. And again, it's the same principle, the issue that we've got with the mouth, in that we just haven't got any kind of real harsh edges there. We've not got enough kind of cuts to kind of stop those smooth edges occurring. So I'm going to call another cover on that selection there, and I'm going to pull that back a little bit. Okay, that will partially help. Throw subdivision on to check again. Okay, we start to get somewhere, and for now I don't mind that so much. We can fix the rest of that later. Okay, so now we've just got to looking back at Bender a second. So we've got the little antenna thing on his head, and then his arms, the door, and the legs. Let's start with the antenna thing, which I'm sure you can see the way we're going to do this. We'll use another ball, and what I tend to do is, if it's something quite small and don't need that level of detail, I will just drop the sections down to a level that I think is kind of more comfortable. So if I don't need loads of detail on an object because it's really small, like this ball will be, the base of the antenna, I'll drop the sections down accordingly. So we've got, just going to set that just touching the head there. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Probably a little bit bigger actually in real life. I say real life, it's a cartoon. Scale that up a bit. Okay, yep, that's a good base for the antenna. Now we've got a couple of options here. I'm just going to call this antenna. And I'm going to hit save because I've still got untitled. So Bender, I'm going to call it V2 for me. Don't forget to save. Antenna, I'm just going to make this editable. So I said we had a couple of options here. We can either throw in a cylinder, or we can try and take some kind of selection here like that. So just clicking and pulling. We can call a cover command a T for transform again, and pull the antenna up this dome, which just looks like it worked quite nicely actually. And just looking at Bender, it's actually quite a short antenna, so I'm going to bring that back down. It scales, so clicking the scale and pulling from the center again. Just coming into a different view so I can see that a bit better. Something like that. Happy with that. Throw another ball on. Again, this is going to be the top of the antenna. Again, we don't need as many sections on a ball that's going to be so small. And scaling from the center again. Something like that size. Again, spend more time on yours. Get the accuracy right. It makes a big difference actually. Cool. So that's the antenna done. We've got the body done. Let's start with an arm and hit save again. So looking at the arms, we kind of have this, what do they call it? A torus. Then just a cylinder, modified cylinder, and then the fingers. Okay, so we'll start with a torus. So coming in front view, just going to zoom into a level that I'm comfortable with. Drop a torus into position. I'm going to rotate that around, and I'm watching the numbers to make sure I get 90. I didn't get -90 when I dragged it, so let's just make sure that's right. Pull that down where I want the arm to be. It's absolutely huge. I'm going to scale that right down. Something around there. Doesn't look quite right yet. So I'm going to mess with these radiuses here. So I'm just playing with these, so you can either copy my numbers or just work by eye, which is what I'm doing here. It's like a bit of a donut. I don't mind that actually though. So coming into front view, just looking at that, let's have a look how close. It actually does run quite close to that edge. Perhaps not as close as I've got it there. Excellent. Yep, I'm happy there. Going to throw in a cylinder. Again, rotate that 90 degrees. I'll do it that way since my trackpad's playing up a little bit. I'll pull that down roughly into position. Obviously the radius is way off. I'm going to bring that radius right down, and again I don't need that many sections, so I'll go for possibly 16, and I'm going to double the height to 2. Probably not going to be long enough, let's make it 2.5. I'm going to slide that back into position a little bit. Just pull it down so it looks right there. Let's have a look. So I'm just jumping in the different camera views here. Yeah, it looks more or less central. It's good enough for what I'm doing right now. possibly a little bit thicker than 0.14. Yeah. It's got to be a bend metal with these arms, hasn't he? Okay, so just gonna rename a few things here. Call that shoulder. I don't know what to call a ball on top of his antenna. I'll just leave that as ball. Call it arm. Arm. There we go. So just to make the edge of the arm, you could throw on another cylinder. What I'm going to do though is just edit this one. So I'm going to come into. Going to double click it, make it editable. I'm going to select all these polygons here. And I'm going to call a cover and a transform. I'm going to pull out very slightly there. Then I'm going to call another cover and another transform and pull out a little bit further. And then I'm going to scale that up. So I've clicked on the scale tool, pulling from the center. And just have a quick look at the image. Yeah, that'll do for now. I think, yeah, I'm going to say that's done. The weird thing with modelling Bender is I never quite get his arms and legs the right length, but we could worry about that, and it's quite easy to change later on anyway. So that's one arm. Got to get these fingers on, which again, I use another cylinder. Jumping into front view again. Let's pull it down roughly into position. Let's move it right across here. Rotate it. See if I transform. Rotate that 90 degrees. Not having much fun with the trackpad actually today. I'm going to pull that out to where it needs to be. We're not going to need anywhere near 32 sections. I'm going to call 8 sections on that one. I'm going to come into camera view, scale that down by a good amount. It's only one finger, remember. Back into front view. And let's double the length at least. Let's go for 2. I'll go for 2.73, anywhere around that's good. So I've thrown that roughly in the middle of the, I don't know, the wrist thing. I don't know what you call that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw on a ring modifier. I'm going to set that to 3 items. And there you've got his fingers all sorted. Cool, happy with that. So basically between the fingers, the shoulder and the arm, that's one whole section of the arm complete. Quickest way to duplicate that, we're going to go into front view, and I'm actually just going to copy Apple C, Apple V, copy and paste them in and move them over. Obviously with the arm, when we move that over, it's going to be facing the wrong way. So we're going to pull on this section here and rotate, get that to 180 degrees if I can. Yep, there we go. Push that back into place. We'll take a copy of the fingers. And let's just group these up a little bit. So we've got shoulder, arm and fingers. I'm going to control click, group them. So that would be his left arm. Zip that up, and the remaining, if I control click there, group, double click, wrong arm. Okay, cool, we're getting there. Them arms do look incredibly long, but by the time they're kind of bent around and stuff, in fact they do look far too long. Not a problem. What we can do is just push them into the body a little bit if we need to. So if we grab the fingers as well, shift click in, push it into the body. This side, again I'm going by eye here, probably better to do that in front view, something like that. Now it looks a little bit short. Well, you can see how to fix this anyway, and we probably will do when it comes to the render point on this. So the next thing that we need to look at is his legs. So, probably a good time to check the reference. And looking at the legs, pretty simple, cylinder and a ball. So what we need to do here, just kind of construct these fairly quickly. Hopefully I'm not too close to my YouTube limit. Okay, so I've gone into front view. The first thing we need to do is throw a cylinder into the scene. Move it down. Move it across 16 sections. Be plenty. Radius 0.15, something like that. That's not bad actually. Height, I'm going to go 2.5. Move that down. It's quite long actually. Let's make that 2.2. Move that up. 1. Sorry, I say 1 there. That's me changing to camera view again. Really do get your shortcuts sorted out, guys, because it's a massive help. Radius, not happy with that. Just going to go a little bit thicker there. And then I'm going to throw a ball in place. And I'm going to change that to parallel to 90 degrees. And what that will do when we move it down, you'll see, is it just gives us half a ball into front view. Move that down. And across till it's about as central as we can get it. Change those sections to 16 again. It's a little bit on the large side, and I'm just going to change the sections parallel to 12. I'm going to scale that down a bit. His feet are quite big, not that big though. We've got a little bit of a tree trunk leg going on, but not too bothered. You can fix this yourselves, guys. Front view, Apple C, Apple V. I've got both those selected. Just going to move them over. Again, I'm going by eye. You guys have got plenty of time to kind of make this perfect. But that's it. That's basically model of Bender. We could quickly put the door in. Can I do it quickly? Front view. Let's have a try. Yeah, I can. All right, let's do it. Okay, so we're going to need a couple of cuts in this body. The door runs looking at his body. It's quite close to the bottom and quite close to the top, so it's quite a high door. So we'll put it somewhere like that. So I've used ring cut there, I should say. I'm going to select these polygons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe? Let's have a look. No, it's quite a short door. I'm going to get rid of those. So I'm upper clicking to deselect those. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to control click and call split. And what that will do is take that section completely out of that model. We're going to call that door. Okay, so now the door in its own right is an object. Center point's up here, which is a bit annoying, but we can sort that out later. And you can see now we can see inside Bender's body. So what we might add on to the body, just while we're here, is a shell command. And I'm going to put that before the subdivision in the stacking order. And it's on 0.1. I'm going to put 0.05. And you can see we've got these soft edges again. So what we're going to need to do is jump into polygon mode or edge mode. I'm going to press X for ring cut. I'm just going to place a few more cuts around this body basically to tighten those edges up. The door, again we're going to add the shell tool to that, and we're going to go 0.05 so the door's the same thickness. I'm going to put a few cuts on this because it will have a subdivision on as well. We'll have that subdivision now, and that subdivision's destroyed it, kind of like I expected. In edge mode, I'm going to put a ring cut there, and a ring cut there, and possibly one there as well, and one on that side. Back into object mode. So we've got a nice door now. I'm going to come into object mode transform. Just push that door back till it's in the slot. Add a ball for the door handle, which has actually gone in the wrong hierarchy, but that's fine. Move that down. Using front view now. That's roughly about the middle. That's kind of where I wanted it to be. To the side a little bit. I'm going to come into a different view. Perspective view will do for this. Scale this down for the door handle. Let's have a look in that front view again now. Just move that up a little bit. So I'm going to come into side view. Then I'm just going to push that back until I know it's definitely touching the door. And I think that'll do us for now. Okay, so it's not, I'm not happy with that handle, hang on. Just going to move that across, down a little bit, and then push it back. Okay, that will do for now. So that's Bender modelled up for us. We're going to do some texturing and some lighting in the next tutorial. This one's been about half hour, I hope, not too long. I hope I've not rushed through too much. It's probably one of the most complex free modelling tutorials I've done. But there we go, have some fun with that and see where you get to, and I'll be back with the next tutorial on how to texture and render this pretty soon. So thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.